My wife abandoned me for a younger man. Our son's wedding day exposed her deepest regret. I never imagined I'd be sharing this story, but after what transpired at my son's wedding last weekend, I need to get it off my chest. It's a lengthy tale, but I believe it's worth telling. 15 years ago, my wife walked out on me for her personal trainer. At the time, I was putting in long hours at my engineering firm, striving to secure our future, while she spent her afternoons at the gym. I didn't see it coming, or perhaps I did, but I chose to overlook the warning signs. The late-night texts, the sudden obsession with fitness, the revamped wardrobe, the way she became defensive whenever I inquired about her day. Then there were the unexplained weekend errands that seemed to stretch longer and longer. Classic red flags, right? We met in college. She was studying psychology, and I was immersed in engineering. Back then, we had grand aspirations. She dreamed of establishing her own practice, and I envisioned launching my own firm. Somewhere along the way, her ambitions took a back seat while mine flourished. Looking back, I'm not proud of that. The problem started subtly. She'd make offhand remarks about feeling trapped, about missing her old goals. I'd reassure her, promising we'd revisit her career aspirations once my company was stable. Just one more year, I'd say. But 1 year became 5, and before I realized it, she'd become a stay-at-home mother, drowning in the monotony of suburban life. I vividly recall the day everything changed. I came home early, eager to surprise her. One of those rare moments when a meeting got canceled. The house was empty, but her laptop was open. I wasn't intentionally prying, I swear, but a Facebook message popped up. Her trainer was asking if she was still coming by later. The chat history was right there. Months of flirtation, emotional intimacy, secret meetups disguised as training sessions. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I observed. I noticed the way her face lit up when her phone vibrated, how she spent extra time getting ready for the gym, how she returned home with a post-workout glow that had nothing to do with actual exercise. She left on our son's 13th birthday, didn't even stay for the cake, just packed her bags and said she needed to find herself. Our son found her soon enough. 2 weeks later at the mall, with her trainer. He didn't speak to her for months after that. The look on his face when he came home that day is something I'll never forget. He tried to act tough, but I heard him crying in his room that night. The divorce was a battlefield. She demanded half of everything, including my company's shares. Her attorney, a ruthless strategist in a designer suit, portrayed me as a workaholic who had driven her into another man's arms. My lawyer countered by painting her as an irresponsible mother who had abandoned her family. Both were right and both were wrong. The truth, as always, was messier than either side was willing to admit. I was granted primary custody of our son, largely because he refused to live with her. She got her freedom, her younger man, and a generous settlement that nearly crushed my business. I had to sell the dream home I had spent years saving for just to keep the company afloat. Those first few months were a living nightmare. I'd come home to an empty house that still carried traces of her perfume. My son would sit at the dinner table, pushing food around his plate, asking questions I couldn't answer. Why wasn't I enough for her to stay? Did she ever truly love us? How do you explain to a teenager that sometimes love isn't enough? That people can care for you and still walk away? I threw myself into being both mother and father. I learned to cook, help with homework, attended every school function. I even learned to braid hair for his girlfriend when prom rolled around. I stopped trying to fix everything and just started listening. Those years were tough, but they solidified my bond with my son in ways I never expected. Meanwhile, my ex-wife's new life wasn't as idyllic as she had imagined. Her trainer, it turned out, had a wandering eye. Late at night, she'd call, sometimes tipsy, talking about her regrets and missteps. I listened, not out of sympathy, but because hearing her pain helped me heal my own. Our son graduated high school with honors. She showed up late to the ceremony, sitting in the back. At the after-party, she tried to take credit for his success. He got his intelligence from me. She boasted to anyone who would listen. My son just rolled his eyes and stayed close to me. I started dating again after my son left for college. I met my current wife at a work conference. She was presenting on sustainable architecture. We took our time, both carrying emotional scars from past relationships. She taught me how to trust again, how to open up without fearing abandonment. She never attempted to replace my son's mother. Instead, she forged her own relationship with him based on mutual respect and understanding. Fast forward to last weekend. Our son, now 28, was marrying his college sweetheart. The venue was breathtaking. A restored barn overlooking the ocean. My ex-wife arrived alone, wearing a dress that was trying too hard to look youthful. She kept glancing at her phone, as if expecting someone who wasn't going to show. During the ceremony, I caught her watching me with my new wife. She saw how we held hands, how we exchanged knowing smiles. As the evening progressed, she drank more than usual, her laughter growing increasingly forced. Then came the speeches. Our son stood up and thanked me for always being there. He spoke about how I had shown him what real strength looks like, how staying is sometimes harder than leaving. He reminisced about cooking together, late-night talks about girls, college, and life, about how I had taught him that it's okay for men to cry, to be vulnerable, to seek help. And in that moment, I saw it. The look on my ex-wife's face, the weight of regret settling in, because while she had been chasing excitement, I had been building something real, something lasting, and she knew it. I watched my ex-wife flinch at those words, her mascara beginning to smudge. My son expressed his gratitude to his stepmother as well, acknowledging her for demonstrating what genuine love looks like, for being there without trying to take anyone's place. The way my ex-wife's fingers tightened around her wine glass told me everything I needed to know about how deeply those words struck her. Later, she found me alone at the bar. Time had been kind to her, but there was a weariness in her eyes, something fractured. "He left me," she murmured, staring into her martini. 3 years ago. For someone younger. She chuckled, but it was empty, devoid of joy. "Karma's a cruel thing, isn't it?" She sighed, swirling her drink. "That trainer? He's engaged now to his newest client. She's 26. I didn't feel the satisfaction I once thought I would. Instead, an unexpected mix of emotions settled in me. Pity for the choices she had made and gratitude for where those choices had led me. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "That must have been tough." She shook her head, blinking back tears. I made my bed. Then, for the first time in years, she looked me directly in the eyes. "You did right by him," she admitted, "better than I ever could have. I see him with his bride, and I see how he looks at her, like you used to look at me, before I ruined everything." She spoke about her life now, the empty apartment, the dates that never went anywhere, the way our son's childhood room remained untouched, still adorned with his teenage posters, because she couldn't bring herself to change it. She followed his life through social media because he only called on holidays. Watching him dance with his bride had taken her back to our wedding day, when everything had still felt possible. Before I could respond, our son appeared. "Mom," he said, his voice gentle yet firm, "your Uber's here." I realized he had been watching her drink, ensuring she got home safely. Even now, he was a responsible one. As she stepped toward the door, she hesitated, glancing back at the joyful celebration she was leaving behind. In that moment, I saw what she had truly lost, not just a husband, but a family, trust, respect. Her greatest regret wasn't leaving me. It was missing out on the incredible man our son had become. My wife found me still at the bar, lost in thought. She took my hand and gave it a reassuring squeeze. "You okay?" she asked, her voice warm and knowing. I looked at our son, dancing with his new wife, their faces alight with happiness. She leaned in and whispered something in his ear, making him laugh, a deep, genuine laugh, one that sounded just like his mother's used to. "Never better," I answered, and for the first time in 15 years, it was the truth. That night, after the reception, my wife and I sat on our hotel balcony, listening to the waves crash against the shore. We talked about the wedding, about family, about healing. She asked if seeing my ex-wife had stirred up any old emotions. "Only gratitude," I told her. "If she hadn't left, I wouldn't have you. Our son wouldn't be the man he is today." Sometimes, the worst moments in our lives lead us to the best ones. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. Sometimes, you have to lose everything to truly appreciate what you had. And sometimes, the very things that you think will break you end up making you stronger. My ex-wife learned that lesson the hard way. As for me, I learned that the best revenge isn't payback. It's living well. Our son's wedding day wasn't just a celebration of his new beginning. It was a reminder that endings aren't always final. Sometimes, they're just the start of a better story. And as I watched my son and his new wife drive away, rice still in their hair, love shining in their eyes, I silently thanked my ex-wife, not for leaving, but for teaching us all what love isn't, so that when real love finally arrived, we would recognize it for what it was.